Hi, I'm Nelson Searcy, pastor of the Journey Church, founder of churchleaderinsights.com, and author of this book called The Generosity Ladder. And as you can see, this is a little book that I wrote to help you empower the givers in your church to move toward financial peace. And I wrote this little book because for many years, I've been looking for just the perfect book to give to the people who support our church at the Journey. And hey, I found some good books, but I never found a book that wrote to an audience that may not be used to giving, that wrote to an audience in a way that I wanted to write to them when it comes to the tithe and when it comes to being a regular giver. And then I wanted a little book that people would actually read and it had a progression to it. So I wrote this book, The Generosity Ladder. And what I'm trying to do is move someone from first-time giver to second-time giver, from second-time giver to regular giver, then proportional giver, and then eventually to an extravagant giver. And I talk about things like the fears of giving, and I talk about the tithe, and I talk about how to become a sacrificial giver, a generous giver. And so maybe you've been thinking about using this book in your church. And so what I want to do is give you 5 ways that you might use the Generosity Ladder. And as you know, there's opportunities for you to pick up this book at a very, very reasonable cost if you buy them in bulk, say copies of 50 or more. So one way you might want to use this book is you might want to use it for your first-time givers. You know, if you've listened to my seminar on stewardship, or if you've read my book, Maximize, that is the complement to this book, you know I talk about how you send thank you notes to your first-time givers. Well, why not include this book in with your thank you note? It's small enough to fit in a regular size envelope. Then number 2, you might want to give this book to your significant givers. You know, every week we have people who give large gifts to our church, maybe a gift of $1,000 or $500 or even more. You can determine what size level of gift it is, but then send them a special thank you note with this book enclosed. Or if you're using the tithe challenge, like we talk about, maybe the 4-month tithe challenge, you might use this book as a follow-up to the tithe challenge. Number 4, you might include this book in all of your quarterly giving or your year-end giving statements. Many churches did that last year. In fact, I know of one church of 10,000 that sent every giver from the previous year a copy of this book, and they have a great testimony of how that's helped increase their regular giving this year. And then finally, you might want to give a copy of this book to the entire church. A number of my coaching alumni are doing this, and this is what we did at the Journey. You see, one Sunday as people left, we gave everybody a copy of this book, and we challenged them to read it over the next week, or read as much as they could. Because it's short, it's only about 100 pages, and they're small pages at that, it's really easy for the average person to read. And then when they come back the next week, you preach the sermon on the Generosity Ladder. And you can simply take the 4 chapters of this book and make it the 4 points of your message. And that can be a really powerful 1-2 punch. Well, I hope you find this book as useful as I found it and as my other coaching alumni have found it. And if you've got other ways that you've used it, I'd love to hear from you. But thanks for taking time to watch this video and learning how you can maximize the use of the Generosity Ladder.